It's been 10 years since our country was brought together by an act of terrorism that our children's grandchildren will read about in their classrooms. While we all may feel forever changed in some way, there are none so changed as those who lost loved ones on that day when the world stopped turning.
Where were you when the world stopped turning that September day?
Today we introduce you to Margaret Mauro, a native New Yorker who has called Nashville her home for many years. Margaret has lived the past 10 years without her sister, who was among those killed in the World Trade Center on September 11th, 2001.
I'm luckier than a lot of other people because when I look in the mirror, I still see my sister's face. How many people could say that? We both worked for Metropolitan Life in the same department, and the people didn't, never knew who it was because I'd be going one way, she'd be, and didn't I just see you? No, that was my sister. And they would go crazy. And then after high school, we went and found different jobs, and we stopped dressing alike because, it got to be to the point where people, which one are you? And people always had problems, even our families, my aunts and uncles couldn't tell us apart. On 9/11, I knew that if I didn't have a message on my answer machine, I knew. Because I left work. Soon as the plane hit the South Tower, I left work. And I don't even know how the hell I got home that day. Because the buildings were never called the North and South Tower. So my first instinct was to call one of my friends to find out what the hell, one of my friends in New York. I couldn't reach them. I forgot they were on vacation. So when after the tower got hit, one of the guys I worked with me, he's, Margaret, come here. I said, what do you want now? And he said, come into the computer room. We just brought in a live feed. And when I walked into the computer room, the first thing I see is the plane hitting the South Tower. I said, okay, I'm out of here. So I said, just tell the boss that I'm gone. So I got into the car. I don't even know how the hell I got home. I got as far as Murfreesboro Road and Donaldson, where that comes in.
Yeah,
there's a state trooper. Well, there's a liquor store right after the state trooper. Well, my cell phone went off and my pager went off. So I said, well, and at that point I was not looking at my phone or my pager while I was driving. So I said, let me pull over. And I had the radio on just for background noise. Well, there was nothing on my cell phone and there was nothing on my pager. But as I was sitting there, they announced that the South Tower collapsed. I drove the rest of the way home, and at that point, my answering machine was in my bedroom. So I went in to see if there was a blinking light, hoping that my sister was out of the building smoking, because you couldn't smoke in the building, and she was able to leave me a message. And it was my friend a childhood friend from California, calling to make sure we were both okay. I said, well, I'm going to just sit here and hope that I get it, but I knew deep down inside that my sister did not make it out. My first instinct was to get a hold of my dad, because my dad's birthday is September 10th. And he was supposed to be going to my sister's for dinner that night on the 11th. So I called him, and I said, Dad, it's Margaret. Because Dorothy and I sounded alike on the phone. I said...
And your sister had contact with him, so obviously.
I said, Dorothy was in the building. And he said, what? I said, Dorothy was in the building when it was hit. And nobody would tell me which floors that plane took out. All of my friends, I said, where did this building hit? Where did the plane hit? I was watching the news, but it wasn't registering. Like, I sat and watched the buildings come down, but I was not watching that. I was watching the people in the street, thinking maybe I could see my sister. And for the longest time, nobody would tell me where the plane hit that building. And one of her friends called me, and she said, the plane went in between, I think she said 90 and 100. My sister was on 97. And the ironic part of that is when I worked at the Trade Center, I worked there for 10 years. I was on the 97th floor of Building 1, which she was in, and she hated that building. And I said, and I had such fear about whether she knew what the hell was going on. And one day I was out at one of the dollar stores, and I picked up this book called The Cell. I had no idea. It was a hardcover book. I'm a reader. I don't care what I read as long as I got something. I picked it up, and it was about 9/11. 5 pages in, the first thing they said was the people who were in the North Tower where that plane came in didn't know what hit them, which I was thankful for that. And the ironic part of it, 2 years later, I guess it was the NYPD called my dad. Her badge survived the fires.
You're kidding.
And I wouldn't dare tell him that they had to wear their badges around their neck.
Yeah.
Her badge had a small burn hole on the bottom. Her badge survived that. Nothing else but her badge. So we had a memorial service at St. Stephen's off Lebanon Road in Mount Juliet. And after the service, I invited everybody out to dinner. And we had, I said, I don't want to mourn my sister. I want her life to mean something. I said, so I want to remember her and not mourn the fact that she's gone. So we had a good evening. One of my friends came back and we watched Bridget Jones' Diary.
That's probably something you needed to do. Sometimes you just have to find a way to lighten up.
What was running through my mind is all these things I had to get done in order to survive. I said, because if I let myself fall apart, there was no way I was going to be able to function. And I knew my dad did a good job about falling apart. And I said, if I do it, I'm not going to be able to help him. And his first reaction was, he didn't want to live anymore. I mean, he lost my oldest sister when she was 21. My mom died at age 63 with breast cancer. And then my sister. And it's like, Dad, I'm still here. I need you. When they killed bin Laden, it was so weird because first I was excited, but then all the emotions came charging back. I want to forget that day, but I don't want to forget my sister. But it was like an emotional roller coaster. And it's like, I was so stressed. And it's like, my nephew said to me, my nephew's 42, and he lost his mom when he was 3. That was my older sister. And he said, Aunt Margaret, are we going up to the Trade Center this year? I said, Matthew, I said, since bin Laden's dead, there's 20 more to take his place. I said, and if they're going to hit the States again, it's going to be on that anniversary. And you know what? I'm not ready to die, so we're not going up this year.
How do you feel about the memorial?
I don't like the idea that it's on the ground.
Has it surprised you how long it's taken?
Oh, yes. I mean, a lot of the families are upset that 10 years and this is what they came up with. I just wish the country was back to where it was on 9/12, where everybody was together and not so much apart. I mean, our country is fractured right now. Remember the flags flying and people
every yard.
It didn't matter whether you were black, white, yellow, or green. Everybody was together. This country is just too fractured right now.
I think people think of you more than they think about your sister.
Yep.
Because you mourn for the ones who are left behind.
Yeah, they're in a better place, hopefully.
Yes.
I don't have to be in a building to believe in God. He's everywhere. He's in every sunrise and every sunset. This morning I was up at 5:30. We're out on the road at 20 minutes to 6, and we watched the most amazing sunrise this morning. Just walking in my neighborhood. Last year, we used to walk at 5, and I saw a shooting star, which I had not seen in ages, and it was amazing. Yesterday morning, we were walking in my subdivision, and I stopped, and I went like this to the dog. There was a mother and a baby deer just grazing. It was amazing.
I feel like it's a huge step that you're able to still see so much beauty.
Yeah, I mean, Kim, if I didn't, I might as well just give up on living.
Yeah. I can't imagine that all the survivors feel as strongly as you do.
No, I don't think so either. I mean, I've talked to some of them, and so a lot of them are on Facebook.
Yeah.
And some of them are still angry, but you have to get over the anger because it's going to eat you up.